3 claps, and we're back. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Journey of Now Season 2 podcast with myself, Nick, and my beautiful partner, Karis. And today we're going to be sharing a lot of the journey that we've been on and the perspective that we have learned to embody and action within our lives, within our business, and just live out, I'd like to say. And Karis was bringing this up over the last couple of days, and we just thought, this has been one of those conversations that we've had with our clients, that we've shared amongst ourselves and even peers, and we wanted to bring this to you. If you are sitting in this space and trying to figure out maybe what the words are, what the next steps are, and just where you are on all areas of your life and your experience at this moment.
I think that, our intention on this podcast, and not even just within the podcast, I think if you take it on even widen the scope a bit more with our coaching, with whatever we've shared, has been to help people become advocates for a better life within their own life, bringing in a level of awareness, bringing in that questioning, bringing in that curiosity. And it's just, I see it as like giving you the permission slips to be able to question or to be able to do these things, or just finding some sense of like, oh, actually, like it's okay to think that way and it's okay to believe these things. Because a lot of the times you'll experience this like knowing what you want and wondering if it is even possible, and then having this notion within yourself, but that's crazy. I haven't seen it being done. I haven't seen anyone else do it in this way. And I also know what the norm is for society and the expectations and the grind and the whole hustle mentality and all of those stories that go around that. And so now in the life that we have now, I mean, I look back and when we started this journey, and I had this like deep-seated knowing of what it is that we want, or like what that I wanted and what we wanted to build, and looking at that notion and being like, but that's crazy, like that doesn't exist. Like you can't work less and be paid more. You can't have a balance within your life and with work. Like what are the things that are going to suffer? And when you're an entrepreneur, it's like 24/7 grinding and building and building and building. And of course there was that component, but it's like looking at what the myths around this work-life balance is and really taking into context the quality of your life, because that we've spoken about this many times on this podcast, about the quality of your days equates to the quality of your life. Like that book that you shared with me this morning, 4,000 weeks, how you basically have 4,000 weeks of your life. And it speaks to this whole notion of you work for 60 years, you retire for 10 or 20 or 15, depending on the path of your life, and then you die.
It sounds really exciting.
But I mean, this is the whole concept that we're sort of conditioned into thinking is what life is.
And then don't forget the roles and responsibilities and the expectations that you have to fill and meet in between, whilst you're literally paying for the life that you're living with your life force. And most of the time, it's actually not the life that you want to be living. How often is it that what you are doing is in alignment with your passion? I'm not even referring to purpose right now. And I suppose this is maybe a different perspective to that of Jordan Peterson, who he's very, very clear on this, and he states essentially that it's very rare. And it's uncommon, and it's not the norm for a man or a person in this case to uphold a certain standard of living have a job, have some form of income that is directly in alignment with their passion. A passion can be pursued outside of that experience. And maybe there is some truth to it. But for the people that are not wanting to compromise on that vision and not wanting to say, this is not possible, and that are wanting to fight for that alignment, fight for the congruency, fight for something that feels so good that when you wake up that you're excited, you're leaping out of bed, you feel that creative spark, you feel that intention. There is just automatic alignment because what you are doing is so closely related to your values, to your principles, to who and what you are and what you give the world. And be it that you are in real estate, be it that you are a CA, be it that you are a doctor, be it that you are a business owner, be it that is just you being a stay-at-home parent, whatever the case is, that passion. And I think that's when we started dating, or when we started our journey, one of the things was I was in a position where I was not in a space where there was passion. I was in a space where this is the ideal, this is the expectation, this is what you need to do. I need to get a degree. I need to get a higher degree. And then I need to get a fucking job.
I mean, you worked in construction. You were told that, this is being in quantity
Monday
surveying.
To Saturday, sometimes Sundays, and you do 16-hour days, traveling 3 hours every single day.
And then maybe 20 years later, you will, the thing is going to even out. But
then you'll get to a 6-figure salary, but by then your life has passed you by.
By that time, you've missed time with your kids. You don't know your partner. There's all of these other things that happen on the daily. And I just said, this is not what I envision for my life, and a lot of these conversations take a lot of courage to firstly admit within yourself, and a lot of empowerment to actually be able to take this first step without knowing how it's going to land or what the next step after you've taken the first step is. And it doesn't reveal itself immediately. So I understand fully why people do not take these steps.
And you validate not taking those steps because you'll justify it saying, look, I have invested so much time already to be in this position, even though I'm not satisfied, I'm not happy, I'm getting a paycheck, I've got a roof over my head, and now you feel stuck. Now you feel stuck. You've got commitments, maybe you've got dependence.
Look, the reality of this world is you're going to have financial commitments. There are, it's a practical 3D world. There's things that you have to pay for and find ways to pay for those things, unless you're living the Nepo baby life and you've got generational wealth to pay for those things, or you've developed a nice paycheck for yourself. Yes. But I think, a lot of our clients are really high performers with very high expectations on themselves, and they're entrepreneurs that started from nothing, except their passion has brought them to where they are, but they're giving everything to their business and very little to their lives. And then when that illness comes, or they're now being forced to rest, or there's an internal reckoning or existential crises, then we get called to oh, hey, actually, can you help me with this? Or what's happening here. And so I think my intention with really sharing the little gems and stuff and things that I've learned to question within myself, or things that I would give myself when I started this journey, is suffering is optional, but it is going to require discipline within yourself. It is going to require awareness within yourself, and it is going to require courage. None of those things are comfortable.
Just adding to what you're saying there, there's maybe two types of individuals that we're speaking to here specifically, and it's that person that is maybe in that really uncomfortable space that is not able to see the possibility of unplugging themselves from the position that they are currently in.
So basically, someone working a traditional 9 to 5 that wants something different, wants something more, but doesn't know how to get out.
You're basically crafting someone else's dreams. You're feeding someone else's lifestyle. All the things that that person wants, you are being their hands and feet.
So basically, you're dedicating your life force for someone else's vision that you don't even know if you believe in or not. And this is why I think it's so important to really question. I think initially when you start working and it's really just that paycheck thing of like, cool, I just need to like be able to pay for my things, but I also want to make sure that I'm feeding my passion and who I am, and that I'm being of service and all the things on the side. Like there needs to be a balance with those things, because otherwise what happens is there's a part of our being that starts fading away. We put those things to sleep. Okay, and then we wonder like, why am I so tired? I don't feel the zestful life. I'm not inspired. It's all of those things. All of those things are like when we ignore or suppress these parts within ourselves. And the whole work-life balance thing that's been expressed to us where, shut it. There's this whole thing about like, you know, you work from 8 to 5, then you go and see your kids for 2 hours, and then you spend time with your partner, and then you're so like peopled out or just tired.
You have no capacity to
Yeah.
do anything.
And that's just from a traditional working perspective. And
And prior to that, depending on your circumstance, maybe you were fortunate enough to get a degree, or maybe you had to work whilst you were in school, or start working right after you finished school if you got there. And that's become your day to day. And the objective has been to rise through the ranks to get to a managerial position or a corporate position where you're getting a better paycheck, you've got more responsibilities, more of the weight of the company is on you. There's this continuous need to make certain decisions, and sometimes those decisions don't just end at 5 o'clock in the day, they carry on into the night. There's late evenings, there's additional time spent. Sometimes it even moves into your weekends, depending on what type of work you're doing.
let's also not forget about the level of detachment that comes with living in a life that isn't satisfying to your soul. Because, like I said, you have to put parts of you to sleep. You have to, and so what ends up happening is this infects every other part of your life. It's like, cool, I don't feel like I'm really touching this deep place within my partnership. I don't feel satisfied in this relationship. I don't feel heard here. Or like my partner used to be so fun, and there's all of these conversations that happen within that narrative.
And then you start looking outside of yourself and outside of what you have for means to satiate that disconnect.
I mean, there were a couple of things that really shifted my perspective on this, because when we started dating, I thought I would be this corporate gal. Like I was going to be the one working in PR firms, and I'd be in some international company or whatever else. Like I had this like idea of Emily in Paris, and
But you also had the weight of expectation on you.
sure.
That was gifted to you for many, many years. That was
Yes,
fed
I think,
to you.
I mean, my parents really wanted me to become that girl, and I think my inner people pleaser would have loved to have done that. But my soul, and like all I have ever wanted to do my whole life and be my whole life, is like a mother and have things to nurture and be a teacher and do these things from a very like homesteady space. And I never gave myself permission to do that. And it's been interesting because now I will even say, like, it looks like we're sitting from a very privileged space, you know, random Friday morning, we're able to take off and go to the beach and go and have coffee there. But we had the courage to question. It took a lot of work. We did that 24-hour grind. We did the 4 o'clock up in the morning. We did the coursework. Like, nobody saw that aspect of work that went behind how we're living now. And the level of surrender and trust that we've had to not just embrace but embody within ourselves. And when you have kids and dependents and a whole life that you commit to, there's a different level of cojones it takes to be able to take the steps that we did. And I highly respect that. So when we have like random Friday mornings when we go sit on the beach and just like enjoy our days, I'm just like, do you know what? Fuck, how hard did we actually work to be able to...
To be honest, I don't even have that conversation with myself. I just say I deserve this shit.
No, I'm not saying... It's just a thing of like how hard... Whenever that thought comes up, because I think we all have that level of conditioning and having to... it does come up sometimes. And so you have to be able to be like... Well, for me, it's the thing of like, fuck, how hard did I actually work to be able to make this a reality? Not just for myself, but for my kids. I really wanted to rewrite that whole generational script of like... You work in an office 9 to 5 for that paycheck and that pension. I will sign my life away for that pension. And there were certain things that really shifted my perspective very early on. And one of them was like something that I read about. I'm just gonna, one sec. One of them was really this concept about when you don't have to worry about paying bills, you then have time to think. And that is what makes you extremely dangerous. This is why it is designed for us to never reach that level, because if you're always in survival mode, then you never have the time or energy to maximize your potential. And that whole concept shifted my whole view on how I look at my life.
Sure, and I mean, just linking that now to maybe a person that owns their own business is financially free, but your bank account says that you're free, but the way that you're living and working is not in accordance with that freedom. You're not mentally free. You still feel like there's the weight of expectation on you. That your nervous system is still saying that you're going to lose it all, that if you're not there, this is going to happen. If you're not the one micromanaging and controlling, and if you're not the one that is in control of the situation and making those final decisions, like, the business is going to stop. Yeah. It's not going to work out. It is, for some reason, there's a need for you to be there. And then I suppose the question then moves from, are you actually a business owner, or are you a solopreneur believing that you're a business owner with people working underneath you? Yeah. And that's the thing. So no matter what circumstance that you're in, or what is being expressed in your life right now, I suppose there are different levels of the same pattern, same set way of thinking is reproducing itself through your actions or inactions, and you're validating yourself and self-sabotaging yourself to stay in those set of beliefs of, if I take off on a Friday, maybe my employees are just they're not going to work as hard. Or if I'm not here to do that sales call, we're not going to get it. I need to do this because I don't necessarily trust someone out of the capacity.
But that's a whole other conversation then about like having to decondition to what rest, or redefine what rest is to you, because you can sleep, but are you resting? And that it is definitely a part of this conversation. But if you think about someone that is in an employer relationship, we have this whole thing that someone in authority mustn't be questioned, and it comes from the way that we were parented, and the way that they were parented, and the way that our parents were parented. And so what ends up happening is we have this whole generation of people who now think that their worth is what they can offer, and the product of their like literally producing, like what you are producing is who you are, and it's not.
A direct correlation to the amount of work, to the amount of doing, relates to your value. More doing equals more value. More doing equals more recognition. Hard work equals more money. Hard work equals, what is it? What is it that you're trying to equate that to? But at what point does hard work and more money and more time spent in an external organization, something that is outside of yourself, at what point do you realize that that is not feeding, nourishing, or allowing you to live your life?
Now, I also want to say that, like, if this is something that you enjoy and it brings life to you, then do it. Then make your money, get your bag. Like, do you think if it's something that brings like that brings you more of that like excitement and joy, but you're also able to have a life outside of that in terms of like you're able to see your friends, you're able to like travel and spend time alone. When I speak to people who have that very authoritative view on like working, I think there are some spaces that get it right. And it's more like, I mean, if I think about the Cape Town work culture, more like where it has developed a little bit more and people are a lot more laid back and it is a lot more, there is more of that like balance per se. But it's because someone who came from that toxic work culture was like, do you know what, actually, I don't want to do it this way. Started up their own firm and is changing things for a lot of people. And I think that's beautiful. You'll go to places like the Netherlands or you'll go to these tech startup places. But there are still places and people who are working in spaces where they expect you to give your life to the job. I even see with like my father, how he works. It's like, that was also ingrained in me. You know, it took so much deconditioning to be able to give myself permission to be like, do you know what, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to start my own business. Like I'm not an employee. I'm probably like one of the worst employees to have. So I will.
I wouldn't employ you. Look, I think it's also, it could be a generational thing that we also need to bring in here, because the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, I do think that the way in which they're going to navigate the workspace is very different. And then again, I'm going to pose this a little bit. You know, the question then becomes, you know, if everyone was just following their passion, sure. Do you think that like infrastructure, like basic infrastructure, would still maintain itself?
I think so. I do think so. I just think people have portrayed this whole way of being that I'm speaking about as this like hippie rah-rah thing where nothing ever gets done, and that's not what I'm speaking about.
Okay.
That's not the notion that I'm
clarity.
speaking about, because I think that like everybody has something that they are passionate about. And things that they, like we have builders, we have doers, we have this, we have that. Everybody has their own role in society. How is it that it worked so well before all of this, like these industrial revolution, all of these other cuck revolutions that happened, that have people believing that they are whatever is on that conveyor belt system?
This goes a lot deeper to this conversation. Also brings up the other question, or another observation, which is people do change. Yeah. And maybe you have been working in, you know, a corporate job, a blue collar or white collar job, being a tradesman, whatever the case is, for a couple of years. And you've ticked that box. And you're no longer passionate about it, or you want to start your own thing up, and you've also grown as an individual and you'd like to do something different, or just have a different spin on it, or completely shift industries. Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest places to be in, because the amount of uncertainty, the amount of courage, the amount of trust, because I can tell you 99.999% of the time, it's not going to make sense to move out of a position where you're making good money, there's consistency, you don't have to stress, there's consistent lead flow, the risk to reward ratio, it doesn't make sense. But there's something inside of you that's asking for more.
Well, then I would say to that person was me. I was that person. We were that person, and we just did it and jumped in. And I would not recommend that.
We did it recklessly.
I would not recommend that,
horrible.
especially if you have financial commitments. We just jumped in with no plan. And now I look back.
We had a plan, and then the plan A failed, plan B also failed, and we didn't have a plan C.
Oh my gosh, what plan are we on? Plan G right now, which is
We're not on plan. We're not on plan.
no,
G,
we're not
right?
on plan G. It was always plan A, but just the way around it. It's like, you know, you have to figure things out. You have to knock your head and you have to like find a way, and then eventually it clicks and it's basically failing forward. But what I would say to someone who's in that space and who first save some money, okay, and maybe do it while you are working. Find a way to do it while you are working.
So build
and
your
then
side hustle whilst you're working, which
Do
is
it smart.
which is the generic advice that we give everyone.
do it
But
smart. Don't just
yes, do it smart. And I think that, you know, there's 5 buckets that we all have, especially within the workplace. And those first 2 buckets would be your skills and knowledge. The other 3 buckets are related to your relationships and value, etc. But your skills and knowledge, those 2 things,
Yeah.
can always be built on. Your reputation, you could lose that. Relationships, you could lose that. But your skills and knowledge is always something that you can fall back on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, let's go for scenario 1 year. You're a tradesperson. You're a tradie, you want to get out of, you know, maybe cleaning pavements or whatever the case is. You're making good money. You want to start up you want to maybe start up your own business, have a couple of guys run underneath you, and you just want to do lead gen sales. Great. You have built up the skills and knowledge over time. You understand the business. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've even built up a reputation, which is easier to now cultivate relationships, to lead to sales, to lead to consistent cash flow in business. That's great. It's an easier transition. Mm-hmm. Sure. You might then be a tradie in scenario 2, where you want to become a graphic designer or a poet. Let's go for a poet or a writer. And you're really passionate about it, but this is a skill that you wish to develop, and you've got all these beautiful stories and narratives, and you can see things, and you're very descriptive, but you have never developed a skill set to, you know, build out a story, to build suspense, to create and have more engagement, you know, through what you're sharing, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There's a skill gap there. And now it's you realizing that you can start working towards that. So be it like you invest within a course, or you really look at a couple of books or look at some authors and start dissecting and making sense of like how you actually tell a really good story. You watch YouTube videos, you self-educate, and then you start practicing. And maybe you write a short little ebook or children's book, whatever the case is, and get feedback.
Yeah.
That's a simple scenario, but you will do that whilst you're obviously working.
I always think of that other guy. I love TikTok for this because it's giving you permission to do what you want. But this guy, all he wanted to do was cut grass. That's literally all he wanted to do. He wanted to do his landscaping and cut grass, and it really brought him a lot of joy. Just in terms of, all he wanted to do was cut grass. But he worked during the week. So what he did was during the weekend, he would film videos of himself cutting people's grass for free. That account grew to, I think, like 13.5 million people, like watching, commenting, all the things. And like now he's able to quit his main job because his side hustle makes him more money than...
But it was never done as a side hustle. It was done through passion.
Exactly. But so that's why I'm saying, back to what you were saying, that whole notion of like when you follow and pursue your passions, that it has to be this rah-rah hippie thing. There are people who are passionate about really practical things, and that's what builds the world. So
and that, I suppose, those are the great builders of the world.
Exactly.
And they haven't given themselves permission to do that because it seems too scary. And you know what? Also, if we are talking about the system and the matrix, if you want to call it that, the system is also designed to disempower people. So the lack of equality, the lack of financial resources, the lack of educational resources, racial divide, sexist divide, or gender equality, all these things are put there to compartmentalize people, to pigeonhole them, and to stop them from collaborating.
To think for themselves and to get out of survival mode.
Yes.
So this is the conversation we had about this morning in terms of like the situation that's happening in South Africa, or even like if you generalize it a bit more, what's happening in the world around us. It is people who are in a desperate position, who are doing things in a desperate way to be heard and to be seen. Because who's going to listen otherwise? And also it's the thing of like this system and this whole society created that level of desperation and the gap there. And it's like, how do you then expect to address it? Because like people have tried speaking in a nice way, but nobody's listened. And now it's like, okay, now what? So who made the monster?
So if you're looking at the system like that, which is fair.
Fuck the system.
If you're looking at the system from that perspective, yes, we can view it, that we are the victims, we have no opportunities, it's really difficult, my life has been really difficult, and I there's no way for me to escape it. I don't see any way how. And I really want to challenge you on that notion.
Honestly, I'm so triggered. I'm so,
I
like
know
this
you're triggered,
riles me up. So can I just say this quickly, and then you can just quickly. It's just the notion of when I hear things like that about the whole victim thing, then I'm like, okay, do you know what? Actually, fuck that. Fuck it all. Because how much more are you going to let people and the system whose whole aim and goal is to keep you small win? You thinking for yourself, you being aware of your patterns, you jumping like and trusting your desires and living a life that you actually want is one of the highest rebellions. Like you win for yourself. They don't win. And that's why you do it. It's not for anyone else. It's for you. And that is like a massive fuck you to the system. It's a fuck you to our whole, like our own conditioning. And it's that's the thing that breaks ancestral and generational curses.
And it's a thing of leveraging the current system until you're outside of the system, and then building your own system that makes sense to you, that is collaborative, that is empowering. Because the more that we've found ourselves on the other side of it and looking from the outside in, the more that, you find yourself having these conversations with people that have seen the gaps, that have understood the nuances with tax and real estate and Roth IRAs and trusts and obviously offshore accounts, and just move the flow of money. And I'd even like to say that they understand the sleight of hand with what is presented on the news, and in the economic system itself. There's a certain pulse. When something's happening here, look the other way. Don't follow the news. Like, notice what's been happening, or what's been built up, and what's not on the mainstream sites of things. And I think TikTok's done a really good job at cutting into that and really helping people dial in.
Again, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you are asleep and dead on the inside and just working for the sake of that paycheck, then how does the rest of your life look?
So here's just a way to start framing this. If you're really wanting to build up the ante, take a moment right now and go sit on your deathbed. Go a couple of years into the future, maybe a couple of decades. Go and sit there right now. You're 80 plus years old. You've lived the life where you've worked hard. Maybe you've made good money. Maybe you had kids. Maybe you didn't. Whatever the story is.
It's like claustrophobic. It's already.
It is. And sit there and really look at, if you continued on the same trajectory that you are on now, maybe you bought a house or two. Maybe you continued up the corporate ladder. Maybe you just carried on working under a boss. Maybe you stayed within that narcissistic relationship. Maybe you let your dreams die amidst all the above. Maybe you didn't put the work into yourself, so you don't have a relationship with your kids. So then it becomes a question of, are you able to stomach that reality? Because that is reality. Like, you are going to get there one day, if you get there. And that's if you're lucky. You might not be fortunate enough to make it to that age, because life happens. None of us can really predict, our final breath or the way that we move on in this life. Yeah. And it's really having a hard look at how you're living it. Are you waking up every day with intention, with gratitude, with this, clear mind, clear eyes, intention, and you're enjoying and really embracing the moments, be it that there is a bit of stress, be it that there are some uncomfortable things and obstacles that you have to overcome, and there's feedback and there's learning and there's success and there's failure and whatever the case is. Are you looking at that as the experience, the rich experience that it is? And I really want to invite you to... What did it? Did it sound? And I really want to invite you to question the way that you're going about your life right now, the way that you're actually going about your day today. How much of today have you taken for granted? How much of today and the decisions that you've made have been made out of complacency, made out of fear, made out of, oh, I don't want to ruffle any feathers? When last have you gone to your boss to go and ask them for a raise? When last have you stood up to your partner and asked for what you needed?
And I would even go so far as to say it's not even the raise thing. It's just a thing of like, look, I'm going to take a few days off. I need some more time off because I'm busy investing in this. Or like, it's not even just...
When last have you advocated for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like even just with this, I think watching people on TikTok or on Instagram just stand up for themselves also gives you permission to do it. It's like you'll watch people in these HR spaces and just saying, you have continuously treated me like an average employee. And so within the scope of my roles and responsibilities, I will only perform to that degree. I'm not going to do more than what is said within the bounds and scope of my roles and responsibilities. It's that conversation within yourself. It's like, I'm only going to do this because this is what I'm being remunerated for. Beyond that, I don't need to. And so then it goes to that whole overperformer. Then it goes to the nature of that whole concept of like the good girl, the good guy thing. Because we don't need to overperform. We don't need to do any of these things. You don't owe anybody anything. And Viola Davis says this so well, where she was like, if you have a choice between disappointing yourself and disappointing other people, always choose other people. And this is what you have to relearn when you are in this space and you're giving yourself permission to ask for more and do less. It's doing more of what you want and less of what you don't want. It is saying no to the people.
So counterintuitive.
No, it is, but it takes courage to be able to do those things. It's saying to the people pleaser, do you know what? I can deal with the guilt. I can deal with the guilt of saying no. I can deal with the guilt of underperforming. I can deal with whatever. But I know that at the end of the day, I have disappointed other people and not myself. And I'm not saying don't underwork and don't perform to the best of your abilities within the scope of standards that you have set for yourself. I'm just saying with what other people expect for you. You don't have to do that. That's the expectations that they put on you. So that is it. So I think when we take this conversation from like just a conversation to a practical thing, it is really like take what you need out of this, number one. Take what resonates, and leave what doesn't. But at the end of the day, ultimately, you have the responsibility and accountability for the life that you have lived, for what you have said and what you haven't said, and for the things that you have done and that you haven't done. I think working with people that have, I don't know how to say this. Should I say this? I think in the line of work that we have done when it comes to people that I've passed on, people that have been in this limbo space, people that are on there in palliative care and all of these things, it's there's this notion of do you know what? There's so much regret in the lives that people have lived, and it only comes to light at the end. And I think that the whole reason why this felt so urgent is because you deserve more. You deserve a life. You deserve to live a life that you love. You deserve to live and to have things that you want. And it just takes courage to be able to admit that within yourself. And it's just about bringing awareness within yourself, your own patterns. And so that is what I'd like to leave you with today in terms of how do we make this practical? It's write these things down for yourself and just disappoint other people. Don't disappoint yourself. Go after what you want, because I promise you it's there.
Why is it so scary for you to choose yourself for a change?
Yeah.
Why is that so scary? So if we're going to like really sum this up, I'd start off with the practice of being on your deathbed to really do some self-reflecting. It's a difficult one, but it gives you a different perspective and a different way of looking at your life and the path that you're currently on. Because guess what? You can change everything right now through a decision. You don't need to wait for tomorrow. You don't need to wait for someone's permission. You can start doing something now.
Yeah.
You can start healing now. You can start upskilling now. You can start speaking up now. You could start your podcast now. You can start your business now. You can design a logo now. You can start reading now. Everything is available to you now. Even if it is only 15 minutes a day that you start dedicating to whatever this new thing is, be it that I'm living a good life. I'm enjoying my job, but I just don't feel passion. I just don't feel that zest. I'm just not feeling as creative. And I used to love drawing, and maybe there's a bit of reflection there. Well, then take 15 minutes each day and start drawing. Maybe get into grabbing a pen and paper and just doodling. Whatever the case is, just start bringing a little bit, taking that small step every single day is not just a thing of creating momentum. You are fertilizing the soil of possibility.
Go read The Alchemist. Go read things that are going to bring that sense of inspiration into your space. What did I ask you the other day about? What is it that your soul wants? That question changed my life when I asked myself, and I really gave myself permission to want those things. We all have desires that are implanted in us. And you have to be able to give yourself permission to want these things and experience the expression of these desires through like how would these desires like to be expressed to you? Is it through the monetary exchange? Is it through the travel exchange? Is it through the impact exchange in terms of like, are you having an impact in your service, the work, or is it through your creative expression? Like, how is it that you are having this soul desire being expressed to you? And it's a thing of like, when you see it in its expression, it's like this feeling in you that's like, oh, wow, it's this deep-seated satisfaction that's like, this is amazing. I can't believe I'm doing this. This is so energizing and fulfilling, and like...
And this ripples into all other areas of your life.
How beautiful is it? I think one of the best gifts you can give your children is to be able to do that and to live that, and to model what it means to live a life for yourself and to be happy in that life.
It's the life where you're the one that's advocating and giving yourself permission to live, to embrace, to explore, and to learn freely. Not necessarily saying without consequence.
To have all of that, you have to be willing to...
To have all of that, but to like really live a life where you're living with that skin in the game. It's in the game. And you feel it because you're on the pulse.
Yeah.
And I think that, the more people that start taking that leap and making that choice and consciously being the change that the world has been looking for years and years and years, things begin to change. The world develops a different feeling. People start standing together and no longer just being a bystander in their own lives. Or when something is happening, they're not just watching, they are there, they are doing something about it because they've advocated for their rights, and they can see when another person's right, they can then see when another person is leaving their potential and their magic on the table.
Just to finish that off, I think that comes from that like forgotten inner child wisdom, that inner child that we were so connected to when we were younger, and that like courage and just the like thing of like, oh, it just is this way, and I'm so excited and I just want to experience this. It comes from that space. And that's what we have to reconnect to when we start asking ourselves, what does my soul want to express? Like, what do I desire? Like, there are things that we wanted when we were children that we actually have to give ourselves permission to have as adults, because we wanted those things for a reason, and it brought us joy for a reason. So, yeah, that's all that I wanted to leave you with today. So thank you for tuning in and for giving yourself permission to ask yourself bigger questions and for having the courage to create this awareness within yourself, because I promise you, like, it changes the whole world. It changes your whole scope, and it changes everything.
And if you feel called to share that dream, that ideal, that thing that you wish to create or express within yourself, just drop us a DM or an email. Our link is below in the comments. Otherwise, I hope that you have a fantastic day and that there was something that you could take away. Maybe that spark was ignited. Maybe a question has arisen. Maybe a question has popped in your mind that you can start pondering on and hopefully find that answer that you've been looking for. All right, catch you in the next one.